The House will come to order. Representative Lean, privilege of the floor.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I'd like to draw your attention to the West Gallery. This afternoon, my dad has come to visit. He comes from the land of chugging water, and he came to see us in action this afternoon. If we could give him a warm welcome, thank you so much.
Welcome to the House, sir. We really enjoy and are thankful for your daughter and all of her contribution to this state and to this body. Thank you. Representative Wiley.
Mr. Speaker, privilege of the floor.
Proceed.
Up here in the gallery, we have our treasurer from Sweetwater County. He's done some really good things. Could we all please give him a hand of applause? Thanks.
Again, welcome to the House. Thank you for being here. Representative Pendergraft. Privilege?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Privilege of the floor.
Please.
Thank you. To the body, a little tiny bit of housekeeping. I promised you a statute if I could find it. It is Wyoming Statute 21-4-102, paragraph C. Paragraph C will sorry, but it went off. 21-4-102, look at A and C, and I think you'll see what I was trying to get to. Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you, Representative. No other privileges. All right. Well, then we are at that order of business, working continuously on bills on second reading. A little bit of a footnote here for all of you, just to give you some information on kind of where we're at. I was just apprised of the fact that we are currently at 765 bills. That is a new record for the LSO. They could go back in their as they go back in their history, they have not been able to find anywhere where it says that they've traded that many bills. So we've set a record. And if depending on how Committee of the Whole goes today, we've passed and worked through approximately 8 bills in the past 3 days. So we'll see how Committee of the Whole does. So let's get on to it. House Bill 172 is the next bill for our consideration. Reading clerk.
House Bill 172, sponsored by Representative Haroldson, repeal gun-free zones and preemption amendments.
All right, we have heard the bill we're working on. We have amendments, or amendment, until as far as I know. Representative Haroldson, or no, wait, let me get to my pile here. Yeah, 172, 1. Campbell and Chestick. Representative Washut.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to make sure that we're going to get all the amendments, I think there might be still some in the pipeline. I'm not sure of that. To hit the refresh, are there any more back
I
there?
haven't heard yet. Just the only one we've got right now, Mr. Chairman, is just one here.
Okay.
Second reading amendment number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, sir. Representative Campbell,
Thank you,
Please.
Mr. Speaker.
please proceed.
I move Committee of the Whole Amendment 1. Oh no, second reading Amendment number 1 to House Bill 172. Please.
Proceed.
Thank you. So this amendment addresses significant concern we have heard from the University of our great state, as an example, where there is a daycare, childcare facility on site. And based on the current reading of this bill, they would not be exempt. So we've had faculty, students, parents, grandparents of children there with a great deal of concern, not only with that, but with additional kind of early childhood care centers in some of those campuses located around our state. So the amendment, as you will see, starting on page 7, after line 4, we would simply insert small letter J, H-I-J, yes, which would read, any early childhood education center located on the campus of any post-secondary education institution shall be a gun-free zone. So would be exempt from this bill. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Harrelson, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against the amendment. A couple things to consider as we look at this. A majority of the individuals that choose to go and to do a mass shooting are doing it for media's sake. And we've seen that time and time again. Their goal is not to make it out of that. Their goal is not to survive past this. Their goal is to make a big splash. And so if you were to turn around and you were to pass this bill with this amendment, you've opened up our university over the hill, but you've excluded one little place, the place with all of our children. I don't know about you guys, but if there was a person that was mentally to the point where they wanted to make a splash, that's a splash. If there was ever a place we should protect even more, it would be that place. And so I believe that this goes very much against the concept of the bill. It says even in the amendment that it's establishing a gun-free zone. And this is the repealing of gun-free zones. And so I hear the concern, I hear the frustration that people have in this realm, but it is an example in a situation where this would in essence eliminate any of the law-abiding citizens from being able to defend our children in that space. And so on and against the amendment.
Thank you, Representative. And one quick, been noted, there are 2 cell phones in the bathroom, so if somebody's missing their communication ability, that might be where they're at. Representative Chestik, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and for the amendment. So the amendment covers not just the great university I used to work for across the hill, but also all institutions of higher education around the state, so it affects every community. These early childhood education centers are lab schools essentially for students who are training for careers in early childhood education. It's an opportunity for students to interact with toddlers, very young children up through early grade school, and work with them and learn from them. And they're having physical contact with these toddlers so if a gun is present in a backpack or some other place, we don't want these toddlers who are very inquisitive and they're exploring everything. We don't want them to accidentally come in contact with a concealed weapon. The problem here is, I think, not so much the problem of a suicide by cop situation where a random shooter decides to target a daycare center. That's not a very common problem. The bigger problem is a gun that is present in the space that somebody comes in contact with, and there's an accident. And having young children around concealed weapons is a dangerous situation, and therefore I stand in very strong support of this amendment.
Thank you, Representative Chestik. Representative Connolly, for your first time.
Mr. Speaker, you know, what comes to my mind with this amendment is that I'm new in here, and I've listened to all the voices about parental rights and how important parental rights are. And I'm just wondering that if we're telling people that have their children in an area like this with a daycare, we're telling them your parental rights don't matter because this gun-free zone trumps that. So where are the parental rights when it comes to this?
Thank you, Representative. Any others for their first time? Anyone else for first time? Second time? Second time? Back to the sponsor of the amendment, Representative Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Should I wait to see if there's anybody else?
It's done now.
Okay.
Once the closer is brought up, I've learned that lesson once, now twice, and so if you're speaking, that's it.
Okay.
Please proceed.
I just didn't want to be rude. Thank you. So a couple of, I guess, points of clarification, 2 questions that were brought, I think by the bringer of the bill. I would agree, yes, Article 1, Section whatever number it is. I'm horrible because I should know this. Constitutionally does give us the right to carry. So I have the right to carry and self-defense. It does not say that everyone else has given me their permission to defend my child or my grandchild. So yes, I think it is important that we recognize individuals' rights to defend themselves, but that does not give them the right to decide for other parents and grandparents and faculty and students that they have been appointed to defend all of those children as well. So I think the importance of this amendment is it comes at the request of these early childhood education centers from the participants, the students, the parents, the grandparents, everyone at every level has reached out and said, if this bill goes through, please make sure there's an amendment that exempts us from this. That is what your constituents have requested in order to support this bill. So I would strongly encourage, and I vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Campbell. Body, you are voting on Second Amendment, a second reading Amendment Number 1 to House Bill 172. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The amendment has not been adopted. Having been read 2 separate times, House Bill 172, the question is, shall the bill be read a 3rd time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Moving on to 3rd reading. You won't believe this, but we have amendments. We have one bill for 3rd reading for our consideration, House Bill 118.
House Bill 118, sponsored by Representative Banks, limitations on net land gains for the federal government.
We, again, as I've stated, have amendments. Our first amendment, 3rd reading Amendment Number 1 to House Bill 118. Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the 3rd reading Amendment Number 1 and ask for your favorable consideration, and I'll do my best to explain it.
To House Bill.
Oh, to House Bill 118.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
So this amendment does 2 quick little insertions on page 2, line 3. After rights, inserting but shall not include private property, keyword being private. Page 5, line 14. After property, insert excluding private property. And here's why. So I want to speak about this, not only about the bill, but about the principle of this, one that ties, one that really just, that lies at the heart of our great state and the foundation of our nation. It is the principle of individual liberty, the sacred right of private property, and the belief that government should serve the people and not the other way around. The bill before us seeks to ensure that land exchanges with the federal government do not result in a net gain of federal land within our borders. I agree, on the surface, We are working to safeguard our state sovereignty, which we constantly need to do. But let's look a little bit deeper. This bill allows the infringement upon the rights of private property owners, our ranchers, farmers, and everyday citizens. It limits their ability to sell land as they see fit. This is not just about land, it is about freedom. It is about the right of every Wyomingite to decide what to do with the property that they have worked so hard to own. If a private property owner chooses to sell their land to the federal government, it is not for us or any government entity to stand in their way. That decision belongs to them and to them alone. Now, some would argue that the federal government should not constitutionally own land except for specific purposes, such as military installations, other enumerated reasons. While I understand and respect that perspective, it's a much bigger fight than that. We must recognize that this is a constitutional issue, one that requires a direct and focused challenge by the state itself. It is not appropriate, nor is it fair to place the burden of the fight on individual property owners. We're putting people between us as a state and the federal government. These citizens should not be forced to navigate complex legal battles over federal ownership simply because they wish to exercise their right to sell property. That responsibility lies with us as a state to address directly and comprehensively without infringing on the freedoms of our people. I understand the concerns about federal overreach. I share them. But in addressing one form of overreach, let us not create another. By imposing restrictions on private landowners, we risk violating the very rights we claim to defend. To borrow some famous words, the greatest tyrannies are always perpetuated in the name of the noblest causes. This amendment that I've brought removes this limitation on private property owners. It's an amendment grounded in the belief that Wyoming citizens do not need a government telling them how to exercise their rights. They are capable, independent, and wise enough to make those decisions for themselves. And if you looked ahead on the amendment list as I did, you'll see a couple of other proposals that would allow the state to offset any net gain or try with state statute to try to limit the feds. And while this may sound like a good workaround, it still amounts to a restriction on individual rights. This amendment just keeps it simple. Let's not forget what we are here to do. We're not here to impose, we are here to protect. We are not here to dictate, we are here to defend. As we deliberate on this, remember the voices of the people that we represent, those who value their independence, their freedom, and their rights. So I urge you, my colleagues, to support the amendment to protect private property rights. Let's stand firm in the belief that Wyoming is a state where freedom is more than a slogan. It is our way of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Geringer. Representative Banks, first time.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. We had a pretty lengthy discussion over Constitution and this very argument Monday, so I'm not going to rehash everything. I'm going to spare the body that same repetitive debate. And instead, I'm just going to say that I appreciate the next three amendments and what they're trying to do, but I'm going to respectfully ask to defeat all of them. I've got two amendments coming up that I think will address it as a whole and will kind of settle the balance of the scale. So I'm going to save us all a lot of time of rehashing the same debate and just say we've got something better coming, and respectfully appreciate the intent, but going to ask a no vote for this and the next two amendments. Thank you.
We want to make sure that we speak to the amendment that we're on. Appreciate that, Representative, but we want to stay focused on this amendment, amendment number one. Representative Connolly, first time.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in favor of the Bringer's amendment. And again, I'm saying is that what I've heard in this body the last week is We don't want people telling us what we can do and can't do. I feel like with this particular bill, while the intent is good, it could almost be considered as a taking to tell people they can't sell their private property to whoever they want to sell it to. I'm in favor of the motion.
Any other representatives? Amendment 1. Chairman Washut, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, if you like this amendment, you should vote for it now. All future amendments will have a delete clause that takes care of anything that precedes them. That's just the way we draft our amendments. So there's no need to forego voting for an amendment that you like on the hope that you'll see a better amendment down the road. If there is a better amendment down the road, it will have a delete language in there to take care of any of the preceding amendments that are contrary to it. So it's the old bird in the hand kind of idea.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Chestic, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and in favor of the amendment. Getting back to the idea of this is a taking, this is also could be inverse condemnation, which means that if somebody wants to sell their property to the federal government and is denied by this, we have taken some valuable property right, which we then, the state, will have to compensate them for. That's called inverse condemnation. So not only are we depriving those private property owners of their freedom, we are exposing the state to potential financial liability. On and in favor of this amendment.
Thank you, Representative. Any others for their first time? See, Representative Filer. First time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I won't make this long. I don't want to rehash this and keep beating a dead horse. But I know people right here, just in our county alone. We go out and we go out and we see their cattle. They're out there raising their families, working their ranches. And for me to, or for this body to limit that, and this is the whole thing, folks, is limiting their abilities to do what's best for them and their families, their livelihoods. And here we are we're taking a tool out of the toolbox for them in order to prosper and grow in the state of Wyoming. On and for this amendment, just to bring up another simple point. If I was to own a piece of land, say north of here, I'm not going to mention a town or anything like that, but we have this installation down here that protects us. And they have these things that are sitting in the ground. And what they do is they shoot off into orbit and they have certain targets. Well, some of these, let's just say missiles, are sitting on somebody's private property. Some are on federal property, some are on leased property, some are on federal properties. But if that installation needs to do, say, maintenance work on one of those particular pieces of weaponry that keeps us safe, they might have to purchase another piece of property in order to do an upgrade. So now we're going to take the power away from that landowner to be able to sell that little piece, because once they sell that piece to that federal installation, their liability on their insurance goes down. If you have that on your property, your liability insurance goes up, right? So sometimes they like to sell this property to that federal installation. But here we are that's why I'm so in support of this amendment, because we don't want to take those rights away from those landowners or those property owners in order to be able to do something that's right to even keep us safe. So I think we're going down a slippery road here when we start talking about limiting people's rights. So on and for this amendment, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Filer. Representative Campbell. First
Thank you,
time.
Mr. Speaker. Standing on and for this amendment. And this is a sincere question because I am struggling, and I have been struggling the last couple of days, because we talk about government overreach. We talk about pushing back against the government, telling us what to do or taking rights away. And the importance of those rights when we're talking about parents and their right to homeschool. And then in the same breath, we present bills like House Bill 118, removing private property owners' rights, or House Bill 172, denying city and county the rights. So I'm not sure, truthfully, when this taking away of rights and granting the state government more authority, where do we draw that line? Or do we just draw the line depending on how it serves our purpose? I would think for consistency, our approach would be to push back against government overreach, much like we do from the state to the federal level, and to protect the rights of individuals, whether they are parents, private property owners, cities, counties. I really am struggling to find that balance. And because this one does stand up for private property rights, I absolutely stand on and for this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Pendergraft, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against the amendment, and I was really trying to just sit and be quiet. But I think what's being missed in this is if you believe, as I do, that the federal Constitution prohibits the federal government from owning more than those enumerated lands, then to sell, for anyone to sell to the federal government, is an unconstitutional act and takes it outside of the right of an individual's personal rights. We do not have a right to violate the Constitution. We've agreed upon that. We of, by, and for the people. I heard some really good arguments, some eloquent speeches, and I commend them. But the fundamental premise of that argument is wrong. We do not have a private right to commit an unconstitutional act. And all this bill does is point that out and put up the sideboards. So I would urge you to resist this amendment.
Thank you, Representative Singh, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to respectfully disagree with my good neighbor to the south. And while the military installation that is located in this great community of ours, I'm very grateful for what they do and the protection that they provide. But the location, their specific location here in Cheyenne, well, here in this community, guarantees that we are an immediate target in the event of a nuclear exchange. In fact, the very presence of these installations in our low population, low density areas give us the status of sacrificial lambs in the event of a global conflict. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Thayer,
Speaker, thank
first time.
you. I am on and for this amendment. I want to remind everybody the rights of private property owners: right of enjoyment, right of exclusion, right of possession, right of disposition, and right of control. You know, these are our own property rights. I have a family that has property, and to think about down the road, my kids, my grandkids not having those rights just scares the living daylights out of me.
Thank you, Representative Tarver, first time.
Mr. Speaker, just a comment on previous speaker. There is one on and against this, by the way, but there was a constitutional, talked about the Constitution purchasing. The federal government does have the right to purchase federal lands if it's for military, and that is constitutional. And that's about the only thing I've heard so far where they can purchase it.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Yin, for your first time.
Mr. Speaker, so I'm curious whether the members who think that the federal government is not allowed to buy private land believes that the jewel of Teton County, one of the national parks, which is almost all private land that became a national park, is unconstitutional? Is that what we're going to tell our constituents at home, that that park is an unconstitutional park? I don't know if I'm going to tell my constituents that, and I hope you don't tell your constituents that.
Any others for their first time? Going once, second time, speaking to the amendment, excuse me. Seeing none, Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the body, I appreciate the comments back regarding this issue. And I'll state that I agree with you that we need to put sideboards on the acquisition of land by the feds. And more particularly, right now, what we're talking about is just distinguishing that ability to be only that the state and other governments within the state cannot sell. I agree with that. Or it cannot, the sale cannot result in a net gain. I agree with that. So I agree with the bill in general. My fundamental difference here is in protecting that private property right. And this, I get that we want to push back against the feds, and I agree that that fight should be had. We should challenge the federal government on their general ownership of land. We attempted to do that with the lawsuit with the state to the west of us. It's been tried in the past. We should continue to push that. We should press our federal delegation as well to maybe put something similar at the federal level. But right now, what I'm talking about is our state is restricting the rights of individuals. That is the fundamental, if you believe in personal rights, this is something that should bother all of us. It's something that we need to defend against. And the more we let that freedom, that right erode, the more that we give up. So on the one hand, we're pushing back against the feds, sure. But on the other hand, we're saying, you as the individual, your rights don't matter. And that's not right. So I would ask you to support this amendment.
Thank you, Representative. Body, you are deciding on third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 118. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The amendment has been adopted. Division having been called. All those in favor, please stand. You may be seated. All those opposed, please stand. Shh. Please stand still. The amendment has not been adopted.
Mr. Speaker.
30. Please proceed.
I would ask for a roll call vote calling for the ayes and nays.
Roll call vote has been asked for. Seconded. Need a second? Second.
Point of order. Mr. Speaker, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the motion would have had to have been made before the closing and voting on the issue. And proper calling of the motion should be required where the rule number is called out.
It would be a 12-4.
We're going to go double check and confirm on that. So it's stand at ease. Representative Bear, you are in order. This had to be taken care of when the question was about to be taken. So this motion would be out of order for a roll call. The amendment has not been adopted. Moving on to third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 118. Representative Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I move that amendment, could you announce the body, the results of that standing division? Thank you.
That vote was 34 against, 34 against, 27 for.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 118. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to withdraw this amendment in about 15 seconds. I brought the amendment the other day because of the discussion about the loss of property tax if we sell to the federal government. Because PILT payments, payment in lieu of taxes, are historically a little less than what maybe the property taxes are. So if that's our concern and we're into takings, we might as well put another taking in here that you can't sell your private property to a nonprofit corporation that doesn't pay any property taxes. Only seems like that'd protect our budget. That is a silly idea. And so, Mr. Speaker, and I just want to ask the question, we continue to debate amendments. I don't know where it's at in the U.S. Constitution that the federal government can't own land. I don't know where that's at. I'd like to know the article and the section so we can debate that. But when we debate on the floor and say that, I would like the facts on that, because I don't know, I've read our U.S. Constitution, I don't recall that. So, Mr. Speaker, with that, I am going to respectfully withdraw third reading amendment number 2. Thank you.
Point of order.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Can't withdraw the motion. It belongs to the body at this point. So if we can just say vote no, that's fine too, but it's the body's motion now.
Question haven't been called. All those in favor of third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 118 signify by saying aye. All those opposed? No. Amendment has not been adopted. Moving on to third reading amendment number 3 to House Bill number 118. Representative Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move third reading amendment number 3 to House Bill 118 and ask for your favorable consideration. Body, I'm going to try to simplify this a little bit and just and bring it back to how this applies to your constituents. My amendment, which is in front of you, go ahead and pull it up. It's listed on the website. Simply changes this good bill a little bit to allow private property owners their own private property rights. And what I'm trying to accomplish and what this accomplishes is it allows a private property owner to sell their land, because it's their right to do so, to anyone they so choose. By not passing this amendment, you are taking away that freedom. The situation that I will present to you is if you have a neighbor who happens to be a federal partner that has the word Bridger in it and is a national forest, and I would like to sell to them under my own will, as the bill is currently written, that prevents that. So I ask for your favorable consideration for this amendment.
Thank you, Representative. Any discussion? Seeing none, Representative Byron?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And in accordance with Rule 12-4, I respectfully call for the ayes and noes.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Ellerman? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Brady? Bratton? Brown Gary? Brown Landon? Byron? Campbell Elisa? Campbell Kevin? Chestick? Clauston? Connolly? Davis? Eklund? Erickson? Filer? Geringer? Guggenmoss? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Heft? Repeat? Heft? Jarvis? Johnson? Kelly? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Lean? Locke? Lucas? McCann? Nicholas? Nicholas? Ottman? Pendergraft? Posey? Provenza? Riggins, excused. Rodriguez Williams? Schmid? Sherwood? Singh? Smith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Repeat? Thayer? Washut? Wasserberger? Webb? Weber? Wharf? Williams? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Speaker Nyman? Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 25 aye, 36 no, 1 excused.
By your vote, you have not adopted third reading amendment number 3 to House Bill 118. Next amendment for our consideration, to House Bill 118, amendment number 4, brought by Representative Banks. Representative, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. So I move at this time, third reading amendment number 4 to House Bill 118. So we've heard throughout this week the debate that we've got. We have the responsibility to protect private property rights. Absolutely, we all agree on that. We have a responsibility in our constitutional authority by the Wyoming Act of Admission to make sure that our jurisdiction is within the state of Wyoming. Our lands are within the hands of the state of Wyoming. So we've got a scale, right? Well, what this amendment attempts to do is balance that scale so that we can have private property rights and limit the net gains of the federal government, try and all balance in one. So, Mr. Speaker, what this amendment does is gives the state of Wyoming the first right of refusal. So that basically we have the ability to match that offer of the federal government. We get the ability to say, okay, this is the landowner wants to sell the federal government, the state of Wyoming gets that first right of refusal so that that person still gets the right to sell their property, but we still, under our constitutional authority, won't have to have a net gain of the federal government through that. No, you know where I stand. We had that hashed out Monday, so I'm gonna leave it up to this body of how we wanna go forward, how we wanna address this. If this is the way we feel balances that scale, then I urge support of this amendment. But I've appreciated the good conversations. I think we're all here for the right reasons. And so with that, Mr. Speaker, I'll stand for questions, and that's the amendment.
Thank you, Representative. And we are working off of the corrected copy. The corrected copy. The two square corrected copy, yeah. Refresh your screens before we proceed. Next speaker, Representative Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my other job, I transact parcels of land from two willing parties to another. What, on and against this amendment, what this amendment does, folks, and I do appreciate the bringer trying to solve the problem. Please note we have a problem that we're trying to solve. What this amendment does is it gives the state of Wyoming, I have entered into a contract with a neighbor who may be a federal friend or not, but in this case, I have entered into that contract, and now this amendment allows the state of Wyoming to come in and match that contract and potentially purchase this land. I didn't want to sell it to the state of Wyoming. I offered it to my partner, my neighbor, who may or may not be a federal piece of land. Now what we're doing is we're bringing the state into the picture in maybe a 45-day window, which is a traditional transactional contract in real estate. And we are saying state, which by the way, they cannot act this quickly. They don't have a single person making these decisions. This would be a long drawn out process, 3, 6, 9, 12 months, a few years. Multiple boards need to meet, decisions need to get made, resources have to get brought. And then it's gonna say, I really wanted to sell to this neighbor, but now the state has this right of first refusal to come in and buy it. I don't want the state to own my land. I'm trying to sell to the person that I entered into a willing contract with. Furthermore, if the state does buy it, which I didn't want, then they come in, let's say they decide to, bring some new cows onto the land, put a grazing lease next to me when I wanted to sell this parcel to somebody else, and start forcing, maybe some glamping, maybe a casino that I didn't intend. We are just starting to get into water that we don't want to be in. And I would strongly urge you to resist this amendment. It doesn't solve the problem. It actually creates more in-depth problems that we don't want to deal with.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Provenza. First time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bringer said we want to balance the scale. Well, let's talk about what we're balancing the scale. We're going to balance the scale to have more government involved in this situation. Whereas before we had a willing partner that we were signing up for with our private property. And now I'm going to invite more government. Hell, let's let the counties come in too. Anybody else? Should we put them in here as well? How many parties do we want to put between us and us being able to sell our land? Between us and our freedom. And I'll just say, if on third reading we have a corrected copy, we're not ready for prime time, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize, I got some cringes. I don't mean any disrespect. I respect the bringer of the amendment, and I think he's worked hard. But I do think that this is our private property rights. We need to work this, and I apologize to the bringer of the amendment. I was a little out of line there, so I apologize to you. But I think we need to really look at this. This is a big deal, folks. Let's do this right. I think we need to resist this amendment, and I think we might need to resist the bill. Thank you.
Representative Davis, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to point out one thing here in history.
You know, if it wasn't for the federal government purchasing this ground that we call Wyoming, it wouldn't be here having this debate, would we? But it seems to me, looking at this, if I sell to the state but not to the Fed, is what we're talking about here, but it still removes that piece of property from the public, doesn't it? So it's either federal ground or state ground, and I haven't noticed the state selling any ground at auction lately. So it's a net loss to private property and private property rights, in my opinion.
Thank you, Representative Davis. Representative Yin, first time.
Members, I'm trying to figure out how this is implemented, and so maybe someone who also supports the amendment can help explain it. So let's say you have a piece of property, you want to sell it, you do an auction, or you get it appraised, and then the federal government decides to be the purchaser. Okay, federal government's the purchaser. OSLI has this rule that says, I'm going to insert myself and say that that the state's going to give you an offer to purchase it. How does that happen? How can we buy the land if the legislature doesn't meet and appropriate it? So are we going to hold up the purchase as long as possible until the legislature meets, then appropriate the money? That's definitely a taking. If we're saying we're going to hold up that process for 6 months, 1 month, a year, until the legislature meets before they can appropriate money to purchase this land, that devalues the offer that the landowner has. So if anyone can explain to me, are we just going to have like a bank account sitting just for OSLI to spend that money? Because if this passes and the bill passes, I will bring that budget amendment. We're just going to have a pot of money sticking out there doing nothing, just in case the federal government decides to buy land. So that'll be exciting.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Lloyd Larson, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if I may, to answer the good minority floor leader's question, the answer to that is yes. The State Building Commission has a contingency fund, and we appropriate to that in the event that there are properties that become available during the interim before we are able to legislate that gives them the authority to expend those funds to buy properties, buildings, and other things. So we do that. So just to clear that up. But here's, as I understand the bill, and I appreciate the work that my young friend from up in the Valley of the Bighorns, or the Basin of the Bighorns, has been working on and is passionate about. The bill says that there are no net gains of surface rights or mineral rights to the federal government. Bing, got it. Then we've worked through these issues about preventing the sale of private property from private property people that want to do that. And so in this amendment, I want to sell and have an agreement to sell my property to the federal government. Wyoming comes in and has the right of first refusal. They decline. I can still sell then that property to the federal government, but it doesn't limit the net gain. It can be in excess. There's nothing there that prohibits that sale then from being a net gain as I read it. Now, if that is wrong, I can be corrected, but there's nothing there that then says if the state rejects the offer to buy the land, the U.S. government can only buy it if it doesn't expand the acreage. But I don't see that in there. So I think we have some challenges here with the amendment.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Singh, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to push back on the comment that this great state was purchased by the federal government, that it was negotiated. In fact, it was negotiated in a treaty based off of a fort on which shares a similar name to the county that we're in right now. And concerning that treaty, the federal government was unfaithful. They broke the terms of that treaty. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Singh. Any others for their first time? First time? Second time? Speak to the amendment. I have Banks, Byron, Provenza, Davis, Yin, Larson, Lloyd, and Singh. No one? Representative Banks, do you want a second bite of this, or? Question being called. You are now voting on third reading amendment number 4 to House Bill 118. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Amendment has not been adopted. Next, division being called. All those in favor, please stand. Okay, you may sit. The rest, please stand. Those opposed, please stand. Stand still, it's close. And do it one more time, please. The amendment has not been adopted. Vote was 31 against, 29 for. Okay, next amendment for our consideration. Number 5, actually. Third reading amendment number 5 to House Bill 118. Representative Banks, please.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. So at this time, I'll move third reading amendment number 5 to House Bill 18. Good debate. So what this does is, again, is another attempt to kind of see where this body is when it comes to this scale that we've talked about. So where this fits in is again in there on that first page, and it amends it to read so that if United States wants to come in and buy a piece of property, well, a negotiation needs to be started where they could say, okay, but to keep with the laws of no net gain, there needs to be an offset. So within 1 year, the federal government needs to come into a negotiation and say, okay, there's this property we're going to buy. This is the offset we're going to have. Thus still on that balance of scale saying, okay, we're giving those private property rights the ability to do that. And here we're having an offset so that we're not going to have a net gain. Again, just trying to balance that scale between making this a bill that's more united for us as a body, balancing that constitutional authority and the private property rights. So, Mr. Speaker, that's what this amendment's about.
Thank you, Representative Banks. Representative Chestik for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the bringer. This is a drafting question. I used to teach legal writing and drafting, and I'm confused by the language of this. You say that shall agrees to dispose or exchange land equal in size and fair market value. That's a double standard. There's two different standards there. Not all property is equally valued, so which is it, size or fair market value? They're different things. And so there's proposed swap of property that is equal in size but of lesser value. Does that qualify? Or if it's smaller but equal in value, does that qualify? When you have two different metrics, two different standards, which one do you apply and which one controls? And it's therefore very ambiguous, and I just don't understand how this is supposed to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Chestic. Representative Lawley for her first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My concern and question to the bringer of the bill is, how is this going to be enforceable? What current right do we have to impose this upon the federal government? So it might sound like a good idea, might sound like it might solve the problem, but I'm really struggling to understand based on what authority we demand the federal government do this.
Thank you, Representative Lawley. Representative Geringer for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And actually, that's a good point that the good representative from over the hill brought up. When we talk about a net gain of land being size and fair market value. So let's take, for example, that parcel of land that is up in the northwest corner of the state that was the subject of a lot of discussion. So what we're saying is that on the one hand, so 600 acres up there, where are you going to find something that is worth the same value, that is the same size as that parcel? So size and fair market value basically paints you into a corner where you can't acquire it. You can't sell it. You can't exchange it. So I challenge you to find a parcel that is the same size and fair market value.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Alaman for your first time.
I really like this amendment. It's great. This is doing with the federal government, which we now do with the state. We have approximately 3.3 million acres of state land in Wyoming, and we cannot go over or under by 5%. Federal government has approximately 30 million acres in Wyoming, and I would like to see them not be able to go over or under by acres, 5%. I think this is great. And it not only keeps us with the same amount of property in Wyoming, it allows us to take these small 40, 60, even one sections that are landlocked and let the federal government sell those and buy something that unlandlocks some land. This is great for sportsmen. It's great for everybody. And right now, Wyoming is only half a state. We're not a full state because the federal government owns 47% of us and 76% of our mineral rights. We're not a full state as long as they own that much of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Storer for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought I would offer up a real-world example of a property that, and I'm really trying to figure out how this would work. There are several parcels of private land within Grand Teton National Park, actually. There's one that was actually an abandoned roadway that a man inherited recently. It's only about 350 feet long by 16 feet. But it is a piece of private property. And he has proposed that he be able to build a house on that 300 by 16 foot piece of property. Now, I think most people don't think that's really what he wants to do, but it's in Grand Teton National Park, so it must be worth something. And I think the park is willing to negotiate with him on what that value might be. But if we pass this bill, the federal government wouldn't be able to negotiate with him. And even if they might, somehow we get around the no net gain federal lands, then if the federal government then has to find an exact piece of land of that size at that value to exchange with the state, I just don't know how that's going to work. That just seems pretty hard to do, pretty hard to implement. So I just wanted you to think about it with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any others for their first time? No takers? Representative Banks, would you like to close?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you. I thank the good professor over the hill for catching that. That was an oversight. That should have been or. If I could make a floor amendment right now, I'd fix it, but we'll get our good senators on the other side to fix that so it's size or fair market value, so we have that negotiating ability. But again, I appreciate the debate. I'm glad everybody's as passionate about these issues as I am. It's why we're here, to try and do some good things for the state, and I think that's all of our intentions, and I appreciate that of this body. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Body, you are voting on third reading amendment number 5 to House Bill 118. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The House is in doubt. The chair is in doubt, excuse me. All those in favor, please stand. Representative Ottman, we can't, you can see her now? Okay. Oh, she's sitting down, okay. I'm so sorry. You don't know how sorry I am right now. Okay. And sit, all those opposed. It's going to be very close again. I'm going to do it one more time. Hold still, please. The amendment has been adopted, 32 to 28, excuse me. Next amendment for our consideration is amendment number 5 to House Bill 118. Representative Nicholas. No, that was 5, excuse me. And please refresh, we have a corrected copy. So please refresh your screens. This is a corrected copy. Number 6 to House Bill 118. Representative Nicholas, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies, I would move House, third reading number 6 to House Bill 118 and ask for your favorable consideration. Ladies and gentlemen, we've already discussed this. The only difference in this amendment and the one brought from the good representative that lives not too far from here, is it modifies page 2, so that page 2 reads, property means all interests in real property located in Wyoming and shall include land, mineral rights, and then you delete water rights, but shall not include private property rights. And I would call for the ayes and noes pursuant to rule on the vote, when it's time to vote.
We'll need a second. Okay. 2 seconds, I believe we do need for a second. Just one? Okay, 1 second, we have that.
And so just once again, for explanation, as you can all recall, about 10, 15 minutes ago, the good bringer of the prior amendment talking about property rights asked for the ayes and noes, but it was too late when he asked for it. So this is basically almost a mirror. So it's the same issue that you voted down. The only difference at this time is that we're calling for the ayes and noes in a recorded vote. So I don't want to go through the issues. It just basically eliminates property rights again for both exchanges and sales.
Thank you, Representative. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to the amendment? Representative Banks, first time.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Again, I think we go with what we have. I respectfully ask for a no vote on this amendment once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Banks. Any others want to speak for their first time? Representative Haroldson, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just for question for the bringer of the amendment, can you just describe for us when you get a chance the water right piece and that exemption?
Thank you, Representative Haroldson. Any others for their first time? First time. Seeing none, second time. Back to the bringer, Representative Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the answer is, there are 2 answers. Number 1, you can't bring identical amendments. Number 2, water rights are severable, and I always want to keep water rights whenever I can. Thanks.
Members, you are going to be voting on a third reading amendment number 6, corrected copy number 6 to House Bill 118. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemand? No. Andrew? No. Angelos? No. Banks? No. Bear? No. Brady? No. Bratton? No. Brown Gary? No. Brown Landon? Aye. Byron? Aye. Campbell Elisa? Aye. Campbell Kevin? No. Chestick? Aye. Clouston? Aye. Connolly? Aye. Davis? Aye. Eklund? Aye. Erickson? No. Filer? Aye. Geringer? Aye. Guggenmoss? No. Haroldson? No. Harshman? Heiner? No. Heft? No. Jarvis? Johnson? No. Kelly? No. Knapp? No. Larson Lloyd? Aye. Larson JT? Aye. Lawley? Aye. Lean? No. Locke? No. Lucas? No. McCann? No. Nicholas? No. Ottman? Pendergraft? No. Posey? No. Provenza? Aye. Riggins, excused. Rodriguez Williams? No. Schmid? No. Sherwood? Aye. Singh? No. Smith? No. Storer? Aye. Strock? No. Stivar? No. Tarver? No. Thayer? Aye. Washut? Wasserberger? No. Webb? No. Weber? No. Wharf? No. Williams? Aye. Winter? No. Wiley? Aye. Yin? Aye. Speaker Nyman? No. Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 24 aye, 37 no, 1 excused.
Vote, you have not adopted amendment number 6 to House Bill, third reading House Bill number 118. Is that all of our amendments? House Bill 118, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of, no, wait a minute, no. No, we're a roll call now. Jumping ahead of myself. Excuse me. I take that all back. House Bill 118 having been read 3 separate times. The question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Ellamand? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Brady? Bratton? Brown Gary? Brown Landon? Byron? Campbell Elisa? Campbell Kevin? Chestick? Clauston? Connolly? Davis? Eklund? Erickson? Filer? Geringer? Guggenmoss? Haroldson? Harshman? Repeat. Heiner? Heft? Jarvis? Johnson? Kelly? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Lean? Block? Lucas? McCann? Nicholas? Ottman? Pendergraft? Posey? Provenza? Riggins, excused. Rodriguez Williams? Schmid? Sherwood? Singh? Smith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Thayer? Washut? Wasserberger? Webb? Weber? Wharf? Williams? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Mr. Speaker,
No.
are there any changes? Lucas, no to aye. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 35 aye, 26 no, 1 excused.
House Bill 118, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members of the elected to the House of Representatives, House Bill 118 has passed the House. All right.
Mr. Speaker.
Oh, Representative Bear, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A privilege of the floor.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, in your mailboxes today, you received the first revision of what we call the goldenrod, and it is on a orangish yellow piece of paper. And I'd just like to take a moment just to give you a little bit of insight into this document. This was put together years ago by our predecessors. Thank you for the help over there, since I cannot use a prop. So anyway, this is a document to help us know how we're doing financially as we work through our bills. And I will continue to take a privilege of the floor and give you a little bit more about this as we go through this session. But today I would like you to just start by looking at page 2. It's the back of page 1. And I did email this to all of you with a link where you can look at it on your computer. And I'm going to draw your attention, first of all, to lines 30 through 33. They're numbered on the far left. And what you will see here are the governor's recommendations for the supplemental budget. And on the far right, you'll see the dollar amounts for each of those line items for the supplemental budget. And then down below that, on line 39, 40, and 41, you will see the action that this body has taken since we arrived and started voting. So you'll see House Bill 47 with an appropriation of $93,000. You'll see an appropriation on House Bill 169, if it should pass, of $125 million. And then there's another place on here where we would show you on the LISRA the legislative stabilization reserve account, where the other 100 million for that particular bill has been taken out of savings, should it pass. And then various other bills are included on line 41. And while you're looking at it, if you will turn back to page 1, you'll see appropriations on line 28 there that are coming out of the LSRA, which I just mentioned before, which would include House Bill 169. Now, where does the money come from? If you'll go back to page 2, you'll see on line 16 where we've taken money out of savings. So we have all of the income on line 9, the estimated revenue for the next year. We have transfers from other accounts on line 15. And then you see all of the withdrawals from savings to cover where we're at so far to balance this on line 16. So that number will grow as we spend more money. And that will, each of the actions that we take to spend more money will show up down below. And so as those actions get taken, you can see how that works out for our finances. And with that, I'll stop there. You're welcome to come in to me and ask questions, but that's just a beginning primer on how to use the goldenrod. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Bear. Also just been handed a memo, just reminding all of you to please look at your bill cutoff. It's going to be Wednesday cutoff time for when the bills must be there, January the 29th, 12th day of the session pursuant to HR House Rules 4-5A. So please look in your mailboxes. That information is there. Bring you up to speed on that. Next order of business is consideration of bills on general file. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, would you have something you'd like to share with us?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House resolve itself into committee of the whole.
You have heard the motion by the Majority Floor Leader. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. Representative Campbell. Come on up.
Button. All right, fasten your seatbelts. We may experience some turbulence. The Committee of the Whole will please come to order. Okay. The first bill for our consideration will be House Bill 51. The reading clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 51, sponsored by Judiciary. Municipal courts, maximum penalties. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred House Bill 51, Municipal Courts, Maximum Penalties, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chestick, Filer, Kelly, Lean, Washit, Webb. Noes, Representatives Brady, Bratton, Singh. Representative Washit, Chairman.
Chairman Washit, you have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, to do so with the recommendations that House Bill 51 do pass, and I turn over explanation of the bill to the good country lawyer from County Number 5.
Representative Chestick.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll probably jinx it by saying this, but this should be a fairly straightforward bill. It's fairly simple, and I know I've just jinxed it. I bring to you House Bill number 51. It was a committee bill adopted by the Judiciary Committee. All this bill really does is it tries to equalize the maximum penalties available in the municipal courts as compared to the circuit courts. Right now, a similar crime, the same crime actually, that happens in a county versus within a city municipality, depending on which court is prosecuting that same crime, has different maximum penalties. All we're trying to do with this is equalize the maximum penalty. So you'll see on page 2, there's in 2 places, we're increasing the penalties that are available to municipal court judges from $750 to $1,000, and from 6 months to 1 year. That happens on lines 2 and 3, and lines 15 through 18. Also on page 3, on lines 4 and 5. This is really just a basic fairness. The penalty should not depend on which court hears the case. And it turns out if the crime occurs in a municipality, but for whatever reason the municipal court judge can't hear it, it's then turned over to the circuit court. Different penalties apply, the same crime. Just depends on which court you're appearing in front of. And that creates the risk potentially of forum shopping. So we don't want to encourage that. And all we're trying to do is equalize the 2 penalties. I'll stand for any further questions.
Is there any discussion on the bill? Representative Bratton.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I was a no in committee on this bill after researching and listening to testimony, because in practice, municipal courts are not currently charging the maximum possible fines of $750. The municipal courts rarely sentence jail time greater than 20 days because they have to pay the county for using the county jail. Let me see. The qualifications for a municipal judge is just to be a qualified voter and be appointed by the mayor. The qualifications for a circuit judge, you have to be a lawyer. And so does it make sense to give the different levels of judges the same sentencing powers? The cases can be brought either to municipal or county circuit court, depending upon the severity. This bill increases the fines from $750 to $1,000 in 6 months to 1 year in jail. And so that is why I was against the bill in committee. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Chairman Washit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we have a situation in my community where, due to staffing issues, our district attorney is not able to prosecute all the cases that come his way. And so a number of those cases get referred back for prosecution in the municipal court. So a case that would have been tried in circuit court that could have gained the higher penalty is referred back to the municipal court for prosecution with the lower maximum penalties. And we're talking about the same act, right? It's the same crime, only one occurred under state statute, the other perhaps is being charged under city ordinance, but they're often the exact same crime. But were it not for staffing issues, we could have prosecuted that case in circuit court. Now it's being tried in municipal court for lower penalties and lower fines. And that's the rationale here, general fairness, to make sure that it's equitable between the courts.
Representative Nicholas?
Thank you. What I'm curious about is why the jail sentence was increased. I can understand the fine increase, but for a misdemeanor to go from 6 months to a year, jails are expensive and costly, particularly to municipalities. But the crime hasn't changed from prior years. It's the same crime. And so I'm just understand what the logic is of extending up to a year.
Representative Chestick?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I guess the only rationale is that we want complete equality between the two different court systems. The circuit court currently does allow up to a year, and if the same issue comes back with potential forum shopping if we have different jail time versus different fines. The reality is that in almost no cases is jail ever assigned. These courts tend to impose fines only. Very, very rarely is a jail sentence imposed, and almost never the maximum. But we're just trying to create complete equity between the two court systems.
Representative Singh?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So, folks, I just wanted to share a little bit of information that we got from committee. There are two things. So, firstly, no municipalities in the state of Wyoming have their own jails. So, any sort of jail sentence will be shared with the county jail system. And the cost to incarcerate someone per day is $160 per day. And this bill extends the maximum sentence from 6 months to a year. So I thought that would be useful information for this body.
Any further discussion? Representative Lean?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just also wanted to point out that was said in committee that the fines haven't been increased since 1991. So I'm not going to vote for this legislation. I'm actually opposed to it because they also said that the fines that they're giving out, they have a hard time collecting. So where they're only instituting half of the fines or 3/4 of the fines of $750, they're also having a hard time collecting that amount. So why would we give them the ability to collect more money if they can't even collect what they're actually fining right now?
Any other further discussion? All right, so the question being called, all those in favor of Chairman Waschitz's motion that when the committee of the whole rise to report it, do so with a recommendation that Bill number, or House Bill 51 do pass, please say aye. Those opposed? That's too much pressure. The chair is in doubt. It sounded more like the nose had it, but the chair is in doubt. So all those in favor, please stand. I'm sorry. Please be seated. All those opposed, please stand. So the bill failing that, we will call for a voice vote.
Having failed.
Oh, having failed.
Having failed a standing committee division, a roll call vote is required. The chief clerk, here's the whole thing.
Having failed a standing division vote, a roll call vote is required. The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand? No. Andrew?
No.
Angelos? Banks? Banks? Bear? No. Brady? No. Bratton? No. Brown Gary? No. Brown Landon? Aye. Byron? Aye. Campbell Elisa? Aye. Campbell Kevin? Chestick? Aye. Clauston? Connolly? No. Davis? Aye. Eklund? No. Erickson? Aye. Feiler? Aye. Geringer? No. Guggenmoss? No. Haroldson? No. Harshman? Aye. Heiner? No. Heft? No. Jarvis? No. Johnson? No. Kelly? Aye. Knapp? No. Larson Lloyd? Aye. Larson JT? Aye. Lawley? Aye. Lean? No. Locke? No. Lucas? No. McCann? No. Nicholas? No. Ottman? No. Pendergraft? No. Posey? Aye. Provenza? No. Riggins, excused. Rodriguez Williams? Repeat? No. Schmid? No. Sherwood? Aye. Singh? No. Smith? Smith? Excused. Storer? Aye. Strock? No. Stivar? No. Tarver? No. Thayer? Yes. Thayer? Aye. Washut? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. Webb? Aye. Weber? No. Worf? No. Williams? Aye. Williams? Aye. Winter? No. Wiley? Aye. Yin? No. Speaker Nyman? No. Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 21 aye, 38 no, 3 excused.
Okay, the next bill, no, I have to announce it. Oh, having failed.
That was my fault.
Bad coaching.
Yes.
Having failed? No. Pursuant to? Right there. Right?
Yep.
Okay. Pursuant to House Rule 66B, House Bill 51, having failed a roll call vote, is indefinitely postponed. Yes? So the next bill for our consideration is House Bill 121. The reading clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 121, sponsored by Representative Singh, Hospital Pricing Transparency. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred House Bill 121, Hospital Pricing Transparency, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Clauston, Guggenmoss, Heft, McCann, Ottman, Rodriguez, Williams, Yin, excused, Representative Stivar and Wasserberger. Representative Rodriguez Williams, Chair.
You've heard the reading of the bill. Are we going to Representative Singh? What is your pleasure? We have no chair. So I went to Representative Singh. Oh, Vice Chairman. Representative Clouston, would you like to speak to this bill? Oh, it has to be a chair or vice chair. Might we have the Vice Chairman Ottman? You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure?
I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it will do so with the recommendation that House Bill number 121 do pass. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it will do so with the recommendation that Bill number 121, House Bill 121, do pass, and I further move the adoption of the Standing Committee amendments.
Oh, no, sorry, there's no standing.
Oh, there's none. Sorry, there is none. Oh. I will have Daniel Singh, Representative Singh, bring the, no. Oh, Representative from Laramie County. will
Please.
Explain the bill.
No
Please.
proper names, thank you.
Oh,
Is there any, no, I'm not on the discussion yet. Representative Singh, presenting the bill?
no proper names.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, now that we're clear as mud right now, I bring you hospital pricing transparency. And based off the conversations that we had a couple days ago, I'm glad to hear that everyone is a huge fan of transparency. So I'm excited to present this bill to you. I rise today to advocate for House Bill 121, hospital price transparency. This bill is a critical step forward in ensuring Wyoming residents have access to clear, accurate, and upfront pricing for medical services. It also ensures hospitals in our state are held accountable for compliance with transparency requirement. This bill isn't just about rules and regulations, it's about empowering patients, fostering competition, and restoring fairness to our healthcare system. And let me walk you through the key aspects of this bill and explain why it's necessary for Wyoming. The purpose of House Bill 121 is straightforward: to make healthcare pricing transparent. This bill requires Wyoming hospitals to disclose real prices in dollar amounts for all services. It holds hospitals accountable. It establishes state-level enforcement, filling gaps left by weak federal oversight. And it protects patients from harm. It prohibits hospitals that fail to comply with transparency requirements from engaging in debt collection practices, shielding patients from unjust financial harm. At its core, this bill is about trust and fairness, ensuring patients are no longer blindsided by hidden costs and surprise bill. And before I walk through this bill, let me address some of the problems that it seeks to solve. Firstly, systemic noncompliance. Many hospitals in Wyoming are failing to provide meaningful pricing information. Pricing data is often incomplete, buried on websites, or formatted in ways that make it inaccessible to patients. And even when the pricing data is posted, it often includes vague averages or estimates rather than the actual dollar amounts patients need. Another reason is weak federal enforcement. Since federal rules took effect in 2021, the CMS, well, I don't know if I can say it. The CMS has penalized only 15 hospitals nationwide for noncompliance. To date, no Wyoming hospital has been penalized despite clear evidence of noncompliance. This bill brings enforcement closer to home, empowering the good department that deals with health to ensure hospitals in our state follow the rules. And the third reason is that patients are suffering. Without access to clear pricing, patients are left to navigate an opaque system that results in surprise bills and financial hardship. Worse, hospitals that fail to comply with transparency rules can still send bills to collections, garnish wages, or report debts to credit bureaus. This bill directly addresses these problems by strengthening enforcement and protecting patients and restoring transparency. So the title of the bill on page 2, lines 6 through 12, go through that. This is officially titled the Hospital Price Transparency Act, that it requires hospitals to disclose comprehensive pricing information, establish state-level enforcement mechanisms, and protect patients from financial harm caused by hospital noncompliance. The next section is definitions. Some of the key terms in the definitions include facility item and services, that all services are provided by the hospital, such as surgeries, diagnostics, or prescription drugs, that there's a total undiscounted price for an item or service before any insurance or cash pay discounts, and that there is a shoppable service, that services can be scheduled in advance, such as MRIs or elective surgeries, making them ideal for comparison shopping. The next section details that the pricing information is publicly available in both machine-readable files and consumer-friendly lists. This consumer-friendly list must provide a searchable list of at least 300 shoppable services, clearly presented for patients to compare costs. And the emphasis here is on accessibility, that pricing information must be free of charge, easy to find, and not require logins or personal information. The next section is the detailed requirements of the pricing lists. And that is starting on page 7. And so hospitals are required to disclose gross charges, which would be the full price for each service before the discounts, the discounted cash prices, the payer negotiated charges, the minimum and maximum charges, and the billing codes. And these lists must be updated annually to reflect current pricing, ensuring patients always have access to accurate information. The next section is a consumer-friendly list of shoppable services. Hospitals must create a user-friendly tool that allows patients to search for common medical services by name, code, or other identifiers. And patients must be able to see gross charges, cash pay prices, and insurance negotiated rates for each service. This empowers patients to make informed decisions about their care. The next section, it authorizes the Wyoming Department of Health to be tasked with enforcing the law through audits, compliant investigations, and annual compliance checks to create a robust enforcement mechanisms to hold hospitals accountable. The next section is a corrective action plan that hospitals that fail to comply must submit a corrective action plan detailing the specific violations, the steps they will take to address these issues, and a timeline for achieving compliance. And hospitals that fail to follow through on their plans will face penalties, $1,000 per day. Non-compliant hospitals will face fines of $1,000 per day until they achieve compliance. This financial penalty ensures that there are real consequences for failing to meet transparency requirements. The next section prohibits debt collection. Non-compliant hospitals are prohibited from engaging in debt collection practices. Specifically, they cannot send unpaid bills to collections, sue patients for payment, or report debt to credit bureaus. Patients who receive bills from non-compliant hospitals can challenge these debts in court, providing them with an additional layer of protections. The next section is that the Wyoming Department of Health will propose legislative amendments and issue rules to ensure the law remains effective and responsive to emerging healthcare needs. And then the last section is the effective date, which right now is July 1st, 2025. So, Madam Chairman and members of the House, this bill is about giving power back to the people of Wyoming. It ensures hospitals are transparent, accountable, and fair. It protects patients from surprise bills and predatory debt collection practices, and it ensures that Wyoming leads the way in creating a healthcare system that is clear, competitive, and patient focus. Thank you, and I stand for questions.
Okay, we have a committee of the whole amendment. Pardon me? So go bill first? Okay. So we will have discussion on the bill first and then discuss the amendment? Okay, so we will discuss the bill first and then we will move to, yes, discussion on the amendment. So Representative Chestek.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Before I became a professor, I was a lawyer in another state, but I did have cases, a series of cases in which hospital charges were at issue, and it was generally how do hospitals price their services, and had a series of cases where I had to hire expert witnesses to tell me what were the charges and were the charges appropriate, and how were hospital charges calculated, and the hospital had other experts that challenged those things, and it was a battle of the experts. And what I learned from all that experience was that there is no such thing as a standard charge. There is no such thing in a hospital. Hospital accounting is a nightmare. It's not transparent to anybody, not even to them, I don't think, half the time. What I concluded from those cases was that pricing hospital services is like buying a new car. There's a sticker price, but nobody pays it. And there's many discounted prices, and you can negotiate. And turns out that the sticker price, especially in hospitals, is way higher than what anybody ever pays. If you're insured, whether you're insured by Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, all of those buyers of services negotiate lower rates, and sometimes dramatically lower rates than what the sticker price is. Nobody, and even those who are charged, who are uninsured, end up getting charged the sticker price. They end up settling for less than that because the sticker price is way overpriced. So there is no such thing as a standard charge that means anything to anybody. It's not charged, nobody ever pays standard price. This bill on page 5 defines standard charge as the regular rate established by the facility for a facility item or service, and that depends on who's buying it. It really is impossible to determine what the standard charge is. So I am no fan of hospitals, trust me on that. I have litigated against them many times on just these issues. And I think the way they price their services and deliver them is horribly opaque, intended to be opaque. So I completely support the goal of this bill. I don't think this gets us there. I think this bill needs some more work, and I would love to work on it to try and figure out how to do this right. But I don't think, I think we're a long way from a solution here that is going to be workable. Thank you.
Representative Eklund.
Madam Chairman, so I like the goal of the bill too. I think it's a great idea in theory, but I think it's going to be difficult to do, and much of that was just discussed. I'm curious how much flexibility. Well, first of all, I'll say that the medical care in America is probably the best there is, and we really pay for it. That's the part that I'd like to get a handle on. I would never want to inhibit the medical progress that happens in America. But the costs aren't very clearly defined. I know of at least one procedure in which the cost range, I think, was $700,000. That's what it could have been at the low end, between the low end and the high end, depending on the patient and depending on the responses they've got. And I could probably go into other stuff that would be that bad or worse. Does the bill, are you willing to build into it, I guess, some flexibility? Because I'm not sure. I think it's a good plan to go ahead of time and try to figure out what it's going to cost to help your insurance company. And that would be, this bill, if we could do this, would accomplish that or help that. But you get into these wide ranges for medical treatment, and I'm not sure we can accomplish it without parts of it that are flexible.
Representative Baer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On and for the bill, in support of the bill. So the current executive, and who was the executive number 45 for the nation, during his time as 45, he brought an executive order to accomplish this very thing. Unfortunately, that executive order really didn't have any teeth in it. That's the difference with this bill. It begins to develop something that holds the companies and the public entities accountable for getting this done. So then the following executive, who just left office, he enhanced that executive order. So this is really completely across the political spectrum. People believe this is the right direction to go to fix the issues that have developed since basically the federal government has federalized the greatest part of our health care, which has left us with very few opportunities to reduce the cost of a ever-expanding, ever-growing, burdensome system where, frankly, the customers have no idea what is going on. If we can get at least someone that's paying attention to their costs and can compare from one provider, one server to another, and make choices, we can begin to drive costs down. This is one of the very few things that we have a little bit of ability to make a difference in this system that actually encompasses a fifth of our economy. It encompasses much of our lives. We have a couple of members who've had to leave the body to use this industry. And we really need to try everything we can to reduce that cost. This is a move in the right direction to do that, on and for the bill.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And as of right now, I'm on and against the bill. And over the last week, I've been able to receive a list of links to all the websites for the hospitals in Wyoming. And I was able to look at those, and all of our hospitals have Excel sheets, at least downloadable Excel sheets with all the information on them. Health codes, your cash price, your all the pricing that that's being looked at in this bill. Also, there's a few hospitals, including the one here in the capital city, that has a really cool system where you can search it up. I mean, you can just do a search right at the top of the screen and see what procedure and how much it is and different pricing for each form of payment. So I really am having troubles seeing the need for this bill because our hospitals are already in compliance with federal law, in my opinion. Thank you.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I guess neither for nor against the bill in general. I am concerned about the potential implications of any hospital that is found in non-compliance or material non-compliance, as the bill states. So kind of give you an idea, the hospital across the street over here did a welcome to all the local legislators and kind of went over some information, and it was kind of eye-opening to me. So 20 out of the 26 hospitals in this state right now are operating at a negative margin, meaning they're losing money on a daily basis and they're hardly able to stay open. At the time, this was a week and a half ago, a couple days before session opened, one of them was in serious peril of actually closing It's just over the hill and about 45 miles to the town with the university in it. Serious concern of it actually closing. They actually have little to no money sitting in reserves, and they're operating at a negative cash margin. And when we have somebody that's in a a non-compliant situation, this bill authorizes $1,000 per day fine from the Department of Health to these hospitals. And I guess my concern is if they're already operating at a negative cash margin and the state is now coming in on top of this, we're just compounding the issue of keeping hospitals afloat in our communities. We're seeing many, many hospitals cutting services. There's an I-80 desert right now for obstetrics. From the capital city all the way to the city with the Great Salt Lake, there's not another obstetric doctor all the way across that I-80 traffic now. That's concerning to me. So in a time when I understand the impetus behind this bill. I truly do. And as the former speaker from the Green River that is Green area just stated, we have all of these. I literally went to every single hospital's website and they all have this information. Now I will admit, not all of them are in compliance with what the federal rule says, which means has to be in this particular format, has to give X, Y, and Z to the exact degree of what you're going to do with insurance, co-pays, those types of things. Not all of them had that. This is compounding that by, if not only are you now basically rewriting the federal rule into state law, right? We're now going to penalize at the state level. That's what states like the big states in on the West Coast do. They go deeper and they put more government on our hospitals. They put more government on these people's lives. That's not what a conservative state like ours does. We try to keep government out of these types of things. So I recognize what the impetus behind this bill is. I think it's a novel idea, but I am concerned about the implications of what this will actually do to the hospitals in our state that are already struggling to keep their doors open. So again, not for or against. If it passes committee of the whole, I want to work with the sponsor. I'd like to see what we can do about potentially making this a little less severe on some of those hospitals that might be closing their doors. Keep those open and keep those doctors in your communities.
Representative Conley.
Thank you, Ms. Chairwoman. I'm the same way. I'm not for or against. I think it is be fine either way, but I just want to talk a little bit about, I did the same thing, and there are not hospitals that I know of in Wyoming right now that are totally out of compliance with the CMS rules. The CMS has really strong penalties if the hospitals are not meeting these requirements. I know it was said that maybe they're kind of weak enforcing them, that could be, but there are pretty strong penalties for the hospitals. And it's hard because of all the different charges and all the different ways you can put the charges together. Some patients have to CAT scan. Are you going to have contrast with that or not? How do you put those lists together? And I think it's something that the hospitals would probably be willing to work on to help us. So I would suggest that we maybe get with them. I don't know if that could be an interim topic or not, but it needs to happen and people need to be able to know what those charges are. I'd like to be able to walk inside the hospital door and CAT scan is this, MRI is this, all those things. But are you listing IV fluid? There's all kinds of different codes. I think there's I'm not positive, I think there's over 70,000 different codes to be able to put prices together. Anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. In our local hospital, spent $100,000 putting a system in place to be able to do this price transparency for our patients in the county that I'm from. So it's costly, needed, but maybe we need to take a little longer look at it. Thank you.
Representative Wasserberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is actually a really exciting bill, ladies and gentlemen, that would lay out price transparency to the public so they can sit there and allow to shop for what type of services that they want. We are talking about the cost of our healthcare. A lot of our hospitals are in the negative as far as how much money they're making. I believe that opening this up would allow that for that competition to be able to take place and for people to find solutions to help lower costs. And this would also help our consumers with lowering costs as well. I think this would also actually make it easier on our insurance companies if they could sit there and have that price transparency and be able to negotiate those type of costs. It would also, a really exciting thing about this, ladies and gentlemen, is it would open the door for more opportunity in our healthcare fields where we could have more options. I would think that there'd be some private physicians that actually would want to come here and practice some of these healthcare practices. So I am in favor of this bill. I think it's a really exciting bill, actually, and I'd really like to ask for your support on it.
Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I don't know how many have actually got to read all 27 pages of this, but this is a really big deal. What I'm going to ask for you is to resist passing this right now. And if our Labor and Health Committee can assign a task force for the summer, maybe there could be a joint interim topic. But we're talking thousands and thousands of procedures, everything from bandages to scalpels to needles, everything has to be in there. We're putting a huge workload on these hospitals, so we're going to increase their administrative burden. We're also giving new workload to our departments here in the state. And now we have a new administration that's probably going to make some changes to the existing law. So what I'm asking for here is some time. Let's do this appropriately. Let's work with our insurance partners, our hospitals. Let's work with our departments here in Wyoming and make sure we do this correctly. If we don't do this correctly, this could be quite harmful to our hospitals. And again, we're just kind of growing the duties we're putting on our state departments. So I'm going to ask you to resist this, and then I would be dedicated to bring this up as an interim topic. Not that I want to give up another summer running task force again, but I would be willing to do it on this. So please consider putting this off so we can really work on it later. Thank you.
Representative Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. It used to be we didn't really much pay attention to what things cost for health care services because we had great insurance and our co-pays were minimal, if any, and nowadays lots of folks have high co-pays, and as working at the credit union, I can't tell you how many folks I worked with over the years who had disastrous medical costs, and sometimes it happened because they weren't clear on how much this was going to cost. I married into a medical family, and I can tell you that it's not that hard. They have millions of codes in their computer systems, and if a family practice doctor can tell you how much this procedure is going to cost, I think the hospital could probably come around to doing that also. On and for this bill.
Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my concern here is it appears that we're somewhat basing legislation on data from an outside advocacy group that is, according to testimony at the committee, possibly inaccurate. When our local hospital says that they are in compliance, and yet on the list it shows that was sent and emailed to all of you, it shows them not being in compliance. And so I hesitate when I hear stuff like that. Further, it appears that this is just layering bureaucracy on bureaucracy. There's already a requirement at the federal level. Why do we need it at the state level as well? Why don't we advocate more for that if there are issues with what's going on at the federal level, let's take care of that then.
Representative Chestek.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would like to echo and support the comments by the good representative who shares a monogram with me. I do think this is such a big topic that we need to deal with this in the interim. It's such a huge, huge topic, and it's so complex. It's not just standard prices, it's who pays for them, and how much choice does the consumer really have if you have insurance, and is the insurance company directing your where you go to the hospital or which doctors you can see if you have a network of hospital finance is extremely complicated. I spent years struggling with it myself when I was in practice. And I think this is a topic that is very worthy. It's an important topic. I completely support the goal of this project is to try and make hospital charges more transparent, but is such a, are we in compliance with federal law? And is there a difference between our statute and what's in the federal law? There's a lot of moving parts here that we need to think about very carefully to make sure we don't make a matter worse and don't create a problem and there's already a problem. We know there's a big problem. Are we going to make it worse by not acting in a well-informed way? So I would absolutely support the creation of a task force. I'd be willing to serve on the task force over the summer. But I do think this is something we need to take our time with, do it right, and therefore would urge a no vote on this, only so that we can bring it up as an interim topic and spend some time and really dig into the very complex field we're stepping into.
Representative Locke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm on and for the bill, and it feels to me like it's a common sense process we need to go through to bring this visibility. Everyone in this room has had numerous friends and family. I always put the analogy, it's kind of like you got to vote on this big package before you know what's in it. It's almost like that when you go to the hospital many times, and I know we're moving in the right direction. And if we're moving in the right direction, let's just continue to nudge it in that right direction. So I would ask that you vote in favor of this bill and move it forward. And if there's some tweaks and changes that need to be made, I think that's fair. And but again, I'm very much in favor of us moving closer to that transparency for the hospitals. Be better for everybody. It'll be better for our environment. Thank you so much.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And just a question for the bringer. Why, or did you consider potentially bringing language that just would hold our hospitals to the federal law, provide a penalty for not following federal law? I feel like that would make a lot more sense than filling up our green books with this language. Just a thought.
Representative Lane.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have it on good authority from the representative that is out for the week that he went through this process just recently in our local hospital there in the county of One, and we have the ability to do this in real time. He gave us the feedback that within a few minutes, he had the full cost of what he was going through and how that was going to affect him on the fiscal note. So this won't be an overburden to our hospitals. As you see, they are already doing it. And we've heard from previous speakers that this is already a searchable thing on the internet. I move that we pass this legislation forward to codify into law something that is working for the people, that they know the true price transparency of the medical bills coming towards them. Thank you.
Representative Brady.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of points I want to make here, and no matter how this goes today, just some points. I would like to see that there are a lot of complaints, things aren't transparent. I wouldn't expect anybody to go on the computer and look for ICD-10 codes and try to interpret those. Just if we can try to work with the population in order to perhaps get them to be a potential candidate to use their facility. And someone mentioned before that the hospitals are pretty broke or not much money. I always see them all under construction and expanding, so I'm kind of lost on that one.
Representative Singh.
Well, thank you, folks, for this conversation, and you bring totally valid points, and I appreciate them. Just a couple of points that I wanted to bring to you guys. So several states have, in addition to these being federal rules, several states have already passed this type of legislation, including Texas, Florida, Ohio, and Colorado. In fact, I've been working closely with folks from Colorado, who were some of the folks too. No states, okay. From that state to the south of us, who, under totally different political circumstances, were able to pass similar legislation to the benefit of the people of their state. I'm hearing two conflicting narratives here, that on one side, that hospitals are already doing this, that this is totally not necessary. And on the other side, that if we implement this, this is going to be a huge burden on our hospitals. How can it be a huge burden on our hospitals if they're quote unquote already doing this? And to me, the answer is simple. They're not complying all the way. They're not complying with the federal requirements right now. And though they are close, they may be close, there are particulars that they're not meeting the requirements. And so by passing this bill, we ensure that there is consumer protection in the healthcare industry, in our hospitals right now, that folks that are, nobody wants to go to a hospital, but the folks that do go to a hospital, if they are not able to adequately plan out the repercussions of the services that they receive, they're lost. And so one last point that I wanted to stress is that this complements federal law. It doesn't, if there were differences in federal law, they wouldn't conflict with each other. They would complement each other. Either the federal law is more stringent than our law, and in that case, the hospitals would have to comply with the federal law, or the federal law is less stringent than the Wyoming law. And if that's the case, then the hospitals would have to comply with our law too. And so I am totally willing to work with folks if they have positive amendments to amend this bill in a better way. But truly, folks, I'm bringing this for the people of Wyoming, the folks that would be affected negatively by a bill that they didn't know that they were going to have to pay. And so I ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you. We do have a committee of the whole amendment. Amendment number 1, Representative Klauston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I bring Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to House Bill 121. Oh, move it. Thank you. I move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to House Bill 121. So this is a little bit of reference what I was talking about, just trying to give our hospitals, our insurance companies, and our departments that'll be impacted by this a little bit more time to coordinate and to enact this. And again, we're going to have some changes coming up with our change in our federal administration. So what this is doing is moving back the enacting dates 5 to 6 months in the bill. So page 20, line 13, deleting October 1st, 25, moving it to March 1st of 26. Page 27, line 5, moving July 1st of 25 to January 1st of 26. So this is giving our hospitals, our state, times to adjust and look at how this bill will coordinate with the changes we'll see in the federal changes. Thank you.
Is there any discussion on the amendment? Representative Singh.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm not going to tell people how to vote on this one, but I do think it is kind of suspect if these hospitals are already in compliance that they would need more time to be in compliance. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, so we'll be voting on Committee of the Whole, Amendment 1. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. All right, yes, I'm in doubt. I'm in doubt. Well, just get me a little name tag. I'm in doubt. Okay, all those in favor, please stand. This is for the Committee of the Whole amendment. Down. Please be seated. All those opposed, please stand. Okay, we have more than 13, so the amendment fails. So now we are back on the bill. Question has been called. Same thing, right? Okay. All those in favor of, we had a vice chair though. A vice chairman Ottman's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that House Bill 121 do pass. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. So House Bill 121 has passed the Committee of the Whole. So the next bill for our consideration is House Bill 96. The reading clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 96, sponsored by Representative McCann, prohibiting mask, vaccine, and testing discrimination. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred House Bill 96, prohibiting mask, vaccine, and testing discrimination, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Klauston, Gugemas, Heft, McCann, Ottman, Rodriguez-Williams, Wasserberger. Noes, Representative Yen. Excused, Representative Stivar. Representative Rodriguez-Williams, Chairman.
So Chairman Rodriguez-Williams, you've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Rodriguez-Williams?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that House Bill 96 do pass, and I further move the adoption of the Standing Committee amendment. And I'll turn the explanation of the bill over to the good representative that practices medicine.
Representative McCann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, I'm not going to get too verbose here, just go over it. It's pretty self-explanatory. Prohibiting mass vaccine testing discrimination. I think if I just go over the bill, don't get in a bunch of verbiage, we'll just get through this. Okay, so first paragraph is the who, what, when, and where of the bill, as named, prohibiting mass vaccine and testing discrimination. Section 1 on page 1 does create a new statute, Wyoming Statute 35-4-140, discrimination based on face coverings, vaccination status, and medical testing. Also has a penalty. Page 2 and into 3 goes into the definitions. You got definitions for COVID-19, COVID-19 medical testing, face covering, i.e. mask, definition of vaccination, and over on to page 3 at the top, definition of a vaccine. Page 3, paragraph, or subparagraph, small b, I, and double I, finishing the subparagraph at the top of page 4. Page 4, subparagraph, small c, defines a civil penalty.
of $5,000. And finally, on page 4, section 2 is the effective date. I pray for your favorable consideration of House Bill 96. I stand for your questions.
Representative Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Why is this bill so narrow? With bird flu on the horizon and experimental vaccines in the works for that, why is this limited to COVID-19?
Representative Posey.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to mention that some of this bill would not pertain to the Wind River Indian Reservation and those people that live on the Wind River Reservation. And I just want to make that clear because the Intertribal Council makes the laws for the reservation. And I know they had an order during COVID that required face coverings, whether that's here, whether that's debatable or not, but that was the law of the land. So I'd just like to mention to the body here that the reservation has its own sovereign status and it would not apply there. Thank you.
Representative Stivar.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Question I got is in hospitals where you've got cases of C. diff, MRSA, that kind of stuff, that you have to be gowned up, mask, everything. How's that going to affect the hospitals doing that at the same time?
Davis. Representative Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I got a call from a local airport over there in our country, and their federal funds require them to put up these postings, and if they don't put them up, then they're in violation and can lose their federal funding. Now, they assured me that they aren't enforcing them, but this bill to them says that they have to take all this stuff down, and then they would be in violation of the federal funding dollars. So I don't know how this would apply to that.
Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I had a similar question from my local airport, and one of the things I want to push back on is 13 other states have passed this law. 13. None of them have lost their federal funding for their airports. So that's something to bring it down. There's no requirement currently in federal law. It was April of 2022 was when the federal law was maybe we should say it was only a mandate anyways, but it has been enacted that they do not have to wear masks in airports or on airplanes. So just to calm all their fears, 13 other states passed it. Not one of them's lost their federal funding, so.
Yeah, Representative McCann? No? Representative Lucas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thought maybe I'd lost my chance. On December 2nd, the federal governing body that is kind of like ours, way on the East Coast, released a report that was the after COVID review. And on page 203, there's a lengthy discussion on the efficacy of masks and that all of the testimony determined that it was inconclusive. And that's our federal governing body. Thank you.
Representative Conley.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Just a clarification, I guess. This deals strictly with COVID-19. With my background, there are a lot of other really, really virulent viruses. I remember a few years ago, we were all geared up to handle Ebola. Now, if something like that comes in here, we're going to want masks and we're going to want anything we can to try to get help to try to live through that. But this one just, I'm not opposed to it, but it just deals with COVID-19. So I'm wondering, I guess that's all we care about?
Representative Locke.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just want to throw out just my 2 cents worth on this one. This is I know it's kind of points to COVID-19, but it's a problem overall. And ultimately, the objective here is just to make sure people have their freedom and we don't have the government coming down and saying, hey, you've got to wear a mask, you've got to get a vaccination, and those kind of things, trying to put it in place. And I know this federal dollar issue always comes up. And I guess the question you always have to ask is, how much do we sell our soul for the federal dollar? We always have to ask that question for starters. As was mentioned by a previous speaker, people haven't lost their federal dollars for that. But what's potentially just as important in here is how does the government get to the point where they want to get to with businesses, for example. So every business says, hey, I want to do business my way. Well, how does the federal government control that? Well, they do it with dollars. So if somebody's taking federal dollars, a company may say, hey, I don't want to force masks and vaccinations, but if they're taking dollars, all of a sudden, the federal government or wherever they're getting their money from, any government, all of a sudden, they can weaponize the businesses themselves. And what this is an attempt to do at least is put some initial stops in place that says, hey, no, we want to leave that freedom. If people want to wear a mask, fantastic. You want to take a vaccination, perfect. Go forth and do it. The issue here is trying to force others to do it. And I think it's at least a great initial step.
Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaking for myself, I did co-sponsor this bill, and I was frankly glad that it was limited to COVID. And several people have come to me and said, well, why is it so narrowly focused? And my answer to them has been, this is the enemy that we know. We understand COVID. We understand the lack of the efficacy of masks. We understand that the vaccine is frankly not effective. And so why should we force anybody to do that? The next disease that comes around, we don't know what the deal's going to be. I think back to typhoid, and I could in my mind, and I'm speaking only for myself, I could in my mind say it might be appropriate with an unknown disease that comes along for a hospital to say, until you have taken this vaccine, we're not going to have you work here. To force somebody to take it outside of that, I do have a problem with. But that was my answer for why is this only about COVID.
Right, I didn't know about. All right, Representative McCann.
Thank you for your consideration. Thank you, Madam Chair, sorry. On the MRSA, that's a bacteria. So masks, even the ones that we're typically talking about, the less than the N95 mask, those masks actually do work. Anything, viruses, unless you're wearing an N95 mask or above, you're not fixing anything. You're not preventing anything. You're not filtering anything, okay? Strictly for COVID-19, again, we know at this point kind of what we're dealing with. We don't know what we're going to deal with as far as the next virus. This is something we're probably going to chase for the rest of our lives and rest of eternity. There's always going to be a new virus probably. So that was another reason to kind of keep it narrow. I believe that is it. Any other questions? Thank you.
Rodriguez is back. So we have I think, standing committee amendment was moved to the floor. Chairman Rodriguez Williams, would you like to present that amendment? Or, okay, Representative McCann? So we are on the standing committee amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 for House Bill 96 for approval.
Oh, proceed.
The amendment presented is mainly just a language change. On page 2, line 18, we're going to delete typically. Page 3, line 13, after covering, we're going to insert COVID-19, or for COVID-19 purposes. And page 3, line 20, after covering, insert for COVID-19 purposes, which narrows the bill quite a bit.
Is there any discussion on the amendment? Okay, the question being called, all those in favor of the Standing Committee Amendment 1 to House Bill 96, please say aye. All those opposed? It sounds like it passes and we need 63 energy drinks. Okay, so Standing Committee Amendment 1 has passed, which puts us back on the bill, and we have a Committee of the Whole amendment. Larson. Hello, Representative Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to move Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to, excuse me, House Bill 96. And Madam Chairman, if you'll allow me, folks, this bill's, sometimes we refer to bills that come back, kind of keep finding their way back as an old friend. And we've heard this conversation many times, and it started during the COVID outbreak when there was just a lot of concern on how well the masks were working. There was a lot of concern on vaccine. We've seen this whole process go forward. I confess of not being a very good mask wearer during that time, but most of the COVID-19 rate, and to the point of the good freshman legislator from up in the land where the bison are, this is specifically to COVID-19, and it doesn't impact the others. So when we talk about all these other infectious diseases, even though we may think that there's value to that, this bill is solely about dealing with COVID-19. And so I think it's important that we do that, keep that focus. And what this amendment would do is on page 3, line 7, after government, we're going to exempt commercial service airports and healthcare facilities. And the reason we're going to do that, and I'll talk about the airports first, is the good representative up from the land where camels are worshipped. She noted how there are other states that pass a similar bill. There's requirements the airports have to just hang a sign. They're not enforcing the sign. But they're required to receive the federal funding. Just like if you're a business, you have to put those safety placards up, and you hope somebody reads them. Well, they put these signs up, but if this bill passes, if that placard's up, which they have to do to get federal funds, and we're all there getting ready to get on the plane, then we all have claim to a lawsuit for each of us $5,000, the way I read it. I don't understand why we would do that. They're not requiring it. Now, I think it's also really important to know, and we'll kind of get over into the healthcare facilities, that most of the COVID-19 regulations that we've been concerned with expired at least a year ago, especially after the federal public health emergency was lifted. There are, however, still some regulations from Center of Medicaid Services, and I refer to that as CMS, Center for Medicaid Services, that are still in play. These are primarily for nursing homes who serve Medicare and Medicaid patients. Typically in a nursing home residents are some of the most vulnerable to infectious diseases, RSV, COVID, influenza, and so forth. Given their age, of course, and I think we all understand that, and medical conditions, they're susceptible to that. COVID-19 is no exception, and it has and still can cause severe illness and death for certain vulnerable folks. Now, in Wyoming, Medicaid pays for 65 to 70% of all nursing home bed days, and Medicare would be the next biggest payer, followed by long-term care insurance and self-pay. So then when we talk about the good chairman of revenue talking about the strings attached to federal funds for this aging population, of which many of us probably have some relatives that are receiving that, and we may just be around the corner ourselves, a large portion of that is being funded by these federal dollars. Nursing homes who serve the Medicaid and Medicare patients, which is the vast majority, must comply with federal conditions of participation in order to be paid. Conditions of participation is a term. And so these conditions of participation are wide-ranging, include medical care standards, medication standards, and infectious disease control, to name a few. Infectious control standards are so wide-ranging, are also wide-ranging, but in this context, there are still some guidelines that must be followed during the heightened levels of a COVID-19 or other infectious disease outbreak within a facility. I have in my smashed fingers a 38-page document that governs nursing homes on infectious diseases and tells them how they're supposed to participate. And I read from that, it says, for example, in situations identified as appropriate when they're talking about infectious control programs, gloves and other equipment such as gowns and masks are to be used as necessary to control the spread of infections. Then it says it's important that these facilities know how to recognize and contain infectious outbreaks, and they monitor that by how often these cases are coming out. So our nursing homes, other healthcare facilities, have a burden on all infectious diseases, including COVID-19. And so if they're trying to prevent the spread of COVID-19, they may require the person rendering service, the healthcare professional, to wear masks, just like now wound disease, they have to come in with full PPE. Covering, gloves, mask, all of that changes. Now, we can, I know we don't like to require this broad-based statewide requirement of masks, but within populations that are susceptible to infections, these are the type of conditions that we put in place to protect those who are not impacted so that they don't contract the disease. Currently, when a nursing home is experiencing a COVID-19 outbreak, the federal government will expect precautions and actions to be taken, such as requiring staff and/or visitor masking. Now, if we pass the bill, there's a chance that then the nursing homes are in an awkward position because we're now conflicting between federal law and requirements and the state law, which has a penalty that you have to pay out to those that have been impacted because you told them they have to wear a mask. If a facility doesn't follow the federal guidelines, it would be subject to a survey process. So it's not like the sky instantly falls down. But the survey process, and they may receive a tag and get directed to, for a corrective action plan. Then they'll be resurveyed, and if non-compliant after that, the feds could issue a civil money penalty, and if the outbreak was severe enough, they could put at risk all future funding of federal dollars. Don't like to wear masks. I think the issue on COVID-19 and the restrictions we require and are requiring have loosened enormously. But we still have situations where those are providing services to people who are susceptible to these type of diseases are required to still ensure that they do everything possible to protect the patient and others within the setting. So with that, Madam Chairman, I would be happy to answer any questions, but I would ask that you would support this amendment so that we don't put these individuals in that conflicting, the airports or the healthcare providers in a conflicting situation, trying to figure out if they're damned if they do or damned if they don't.
So do we have any discussion on the amendment? Not, we have a question called, okay. Pardon me? Representative Locke?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Just a quick note, and I probably spoke a little broadly before, but one very important thing is in this bill, it is focused on COVID, admittedly. And so I'm on and against the amendment. I think that federal government over the last several years has realized that we went too far. And so I'm against the amendment. I think that for what the bill says, since it is focused on COVID, they've talked about, they've removed all those mitigations for the most part across the board. There may be other things that happen, but at this point, I'm against the amendment. Thank you.
Representative Clouston?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I would like to see a carve out for long-term care facilities. I just recently went to see my dad in his nursing home, and there was a COVID outbreak, and all visitors had to wear a mask when not in the room. When you're in the room, you can make your own decision that way, what you want to do with your own family. But if we don't put a carve out in here, we're saying the state's going to fine our own nursing homes $5,000 for not following the masking precautions that they want to take care of their long-term care patients. So whether we heard the testimony on the airports, I guess I'm probably okay with that, but I think we need to protect our nursing homes and these people that are in there. So if this fails, I think we need to bring back another amendment, a carve out to take care of the nursing homes. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Representative McCann?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I stand in opposition to this amendment. As conservatives, at some point, we have had the conversation with a constituent, maybe with ourselves, whether we're talking about our own finances, the state's finances, or the national finances. Enough is enough. But we keep going back to the government trough, the state trough. We are addicted to the national financial trough and the state financial trough. People, households, businesses, towns, cities, municipalities, counties, states, and nations generally will not tighten their belts unless they're forced to do so, and we all know this is not healthy. Somewhere along the line, I haven't heard it in this chamber yet, but out and about, you hear about everyone saying that, well, we're spending too much money, there's a lot of waste, but we don't do anything about it. And I haven't heard anything really about waste in this chamber thus far.
Any other discussion? Question is recalled. Pardon me?
I lost my spot. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. We have seen it with our own eyes that a single individual who is massively addicted to whatever vice get healthy again with a stern dose of discipline, and more often than not with some sort of intervention. That usually comes due to some sort of crisis, And there's that force of change. We should be the force of change, our own change, rather than waiting for a crisis to force that change for us. To the people of Wyoming, we must lead ourselves and this nation away from this financial precipice. Enough is enough. We have to start somewhere. Unfortunately, this amendment keeps Wyoming at the federal welfare trough and subject to federal government's tyrannical purse strings, and I respectfully stand in opposition to this amendment. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Okay, so Representative Larson.
Thank you. Let's focus just a little bit here, because in our state, where health care is very difficult, at best, remote, not enough hospitals, not enough doctors. We have an aging population, and then within the delivery model of those healthcare facilities, when there is an infectious disease, we look to the expertise of those people providing services to control the spread of that infection, which includes a myriad, from the dreaded gombu to whatever, you know. But in that is COVID-19, that we know is contagious, and we know we've seen that it can impact particularly aged people who, with other healthcare problems, can really be susceptible to that. So take away the federal regulations. Healthcare providers will be trying to control the spread of that infectious disease, and may require staff to wear masks, may require visitors to wear masks to prevent that spread. Now, we can argue that on how well that works, but I think that will be part of the practice. And if they do that, they're going to be fined if this bill goes through. Now, we add on to that the requirement of these particularly long-term care providers that are taking care of these folks, which we don't have an abundance of, and their largest pay source for the people staying there is first Medicaid. After that, it's Medicare. And we would put that potentially at risk. Doesn't follow logic to me. So all they're trying to do here is say, fine, we can't do this overarching requirement of vaccinations and whatnot with COVID-19, but for airports where they are required to hang a sign, and in healthcare facilities where they're trying to control infectious diseases, we pull that out as an exemption. So I'd appreciate and hope that you'll consider positively in supporting this amendment. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Any other discussion? All right, question having been called on the Committee of the Whole, Amendment 1. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no? No. You guys are killing me. Okay, well, yeah, stand up and count them. So all those in favor, please stand. Have a seat. All opposed, please stand. Please be seated. All right, with the vote of 24 in favor and 29 opposed, the amendment has not been adopted, which brings us back to the bill. Yes. Oh, question having been called. Nope. I changed my mind. Representative Nicholas.
Thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, I've read this bill 3 times in the last 3 hours, and I don't understand quite what it says. So I'd like an explanation of what you mean by, in this bill, advertising COVID, and what type of advertising it has to be in order for this bill to have any impact. So then the next question, what happens if a new strand of COVID-19 arises that is as aggressive and as deadly as the original COVID virus? I was just looking at the numbers of the number of folks that died from COVID over the last 6 years in the United States, and it's astounding. There were 2 sitting legislators in our 2 bodies that died from COVID. I watched my dad die of COVID. My brother John, who is a doctor working at a hospital, was in a coma for 4 months because of COVID. So if that happens again, and this bill is in effect, what does that do? I mean, it's clearly a possibility that can happen again. So, and then what's the overall purpose of this bill? It's a political statement on your belief, or on someone's belief, that COVID is no longer out there and is a real risk, and the perception of what it is different than some healthcare providers versus other healthcare providers. But this is worse because you're weaponizing a belief or a position and creating fines because you simply disagree with the medical literature on one side versus medical literature on the other side. So we're using a political tool as a weapon. And is that what we're supposed to do as in this body? Is to take a political belief and a stance on a medical decision that is not decided on both sides of the aisle. And so I'm just curious about that and the future possibilities that can happen. And particularly with language that is vague, that it's hard to understand even what it means. Advertise or publish. So if you work in a nursing home and you have frail folks that will die if they get a common cold, and they'll die if they get COVID, or they may die if they get COVID, you want to do everything you can to protect them. And so if that particular nursing home says you need to wear a N95 mask, which does work, that's a violation of this bill. And is that what we really want to do? Because it catches other viruses or bacteria? Because that's the definition here. I mean, I just think we got to stop and read the bill and think about what government is for, and using purse strings because of a belief that our physician for the United States has a different opinion of the risks of this. And so you're going to use a political tool to weaponize anyone that wants to talk about COVID or advertise for it. I mean, that's not the American way. That's trying to take your beliefs and insert them and insert a penalty on it because you disagree on a physician statement. So, on and against the bill.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If I could, I'd like to ask the good sponsor of the bill to please, on page 3, lines 6 and 7, to explain the intent of that sentence. No person who receives subsidies from the state or federal government. Who is that? What is that? What does that mean, please? If I need to understand that a little better.
Representative McCann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know all the geographic, so, sir. That includes anyone who receives federal funds.
Representative Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not to drag this out any much further, but, you know, this is, I don't agree with masks and all that stuff. But the other question here to me is who's going to enforce this? What agency, how many FTEs is it going to take to do this work is the big question. I think we're here to shrink government, not grow regulatory avenue. Thank you.
Representative Washit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just pulled up a list on the internet of private companies that receive government subsidies, and it's a fairly lengthy list. Some of them are like automotive manufacturing companies, and I'm just wondering, does that trickle down to the local dealerships in our towns? Are they included here? Or if these subsidies are received at the corporate level, are they exempted? How do they fit into this bill?
Any other discussion on the bill? All right, the question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Rodriguez-Williams' motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that House Bill 96 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. I think the ayes had it. Can I get confirmation from my, I would call it, yeah. It sounded like the ayes had it. So, no. So House Bill 96 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 94. And the reading clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 94, sponsored by Representative Andrew. Charter School Authorization Amendments. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 4, Education, to whom is referred House Bill 94, Charter School Authorizations Amendments, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Andrew, Bratton, Erickson, Gugumas, Kelly, Lawley, Singh, Strzok, Williams. Representative Andrew, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Andrew?
I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill number 94 do pass, and I guess I will explain the bill. So, members, this bill is actually pretty simple. It's an amendment to our charter school statutes that removes the limitation on the number of charter schools that the state authorizing board can authorize. It currently stands at 4. All of those schools have been authorized, so we can no longer authorize any more at this point. This simply removes that limitation and allows our authorizing board to do their work and pick out which charter school applications are going to be successful in their review and allow them to get started. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do we have discussion on the bill? Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just looking at the fiscal note, I'm wondering if the bringer of this bill considered an appropriation, as it is anticipated that the change in statute would cause an increase in resources, a need for more resources to administer the additional charter schools. Thank you.
Representative Harshman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Again, the fiscal note says it is indeterminable, but could be significant. I'll just give you, we opened 2 of these a couple of years ago. It was $15 million. It was the biggest expense we had in the education budget. And we're not sure really where those are at right now. Half the charter schools in this country fail within 5 years. Wyoming has a really unique system as the smallest state, and many of us went to school in this state, graduated from high schools in this state, were educated in public schools of this state. I don't think this is a Wyoming issue. Our schools, we have open enrollment. Kids can go to different schools, different districts. If you're a rural kid in between 2 communities, it's in the statute, you can pick your school. My town, the 2nd largest school district, open enrollment, go pick your school. I don't know what this is trying to solve except spend more money. And maybe, I guess the thing I'm most concerned about some of these things are, you read in our Constitution, the beautiful language that our framers put in and about our public schools. And it really began with, our 3rd president in the Northwest Ordinance in those states around the Great Lakes were the Northwest. And then we benefited on future ordinances. And most all of us who are here from Wyoming came through those public schools. And I just, the question is really why? Why do we want to spend a bunch of money so other people can make a profit off of our public dollars and then kind of send a signal like, to me, it sends a signal like, geez, this public school isn't good enough, so let's get another little wrinkle in there and get somebody else in there. I think we're all for competition, but I think we also got to go back and read our Constitution and what our founders set up for public schools. If we want to have these as private charters, bring your own money, do it. But to fork out 10 million or so per school, who knows? I don't think so. So not in support of this bill. We've got this beginning of a charter thing. Let's just see how that plane flies for a few years. Let's see if it's actually going to land and serve our kids, or if they were an experiment before we take off on this. So urge your no vote. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Representative Brady.
Thank you, Chairman. The past speaker here, I'd like to get some evidence of charter school failures. I'd like to also see about, like you said, competition is good, and we shouldn't be monopolizing public education. And a lot of people are requesting options because of the record. The scores, et cetera. So let's give them a little bit of competition here and open it up. Thank you.
Question.
I think we have Representative Clouston. Yes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So a lot of you weren't here when we set this up a few years ago, but the initial plan was we were going to start these charter schools, evaluate the cost and evaluate how well they did before we opened up some more. That was the plan because the fiscal note on these charter schools is very expensive. I sat on the State Board of Education, we looked at their curriculum, we helped approve them, we helped set this up. So just giving you a little history here, what the plan was when this started. So I guess my question to the bringer of the bill would be, what is the fiscal note on these schools and how well are they performing? Like, we need to see this data, I think, before we expend a lot more public dollars. We spend a lot of money in public education. What's the cost that we're spending per student at these charter schools compared to some of our public schools? Thank you.
Any other discussion? Representative Washit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've supported charter schools in the past, and I do know that we put in a substantial amount of money into each one of these. And so my question for the bringer here, or the sponsor of this bill, is how much have we spent on each of these charter schools that we have now? And what's the likelihood of how many more are we talking about? Or, you know, is there already interest expressed in a number of communities? Are we talking 5 more schools or 25 more schools? And my worry is charter schools seem to work really well in larger communities. But when we put in a charter school in a small community and we split that small student population between the charter school and the public school, there may not be enough students left to sustain the public school. And so those remaining students have to be bused to another community 25 miles away or attend the charter school. So I want to support this, but I'm not sure I want to go carte blanche that we can spring for 25 new charter schools.
Representative Lean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to bring a little clarity to that small community issue, in the land of chugging water, there is a charter school. There is also a public school, and both are thriving. They actually bus kids from larger communities to those small communities. And further note, in my community, we have one of these schools. It has a wait list. I am on and in favor of this legislation.
Representative Harrison.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. Just to clarify, there is not a public school in that community. There's only a charter school. The public school did not stay open and did not survive, and the charter school was a replacement for that. It is a public school, but I'm just saying they're not a normal public school as well as a charter school.
Representative Harshman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just some more discussion, and I welcome this opportunity to talk about our Wyoming schools. But Wyoming is one of only 9 schools that test every junior on the ACT test. We started doing that 20 years ago. 9 schools that test every kid in Wyoming. Wyoming most recently has come out number one in the country. And then there's only one score, one test that measures kids all around the country and really across the world, and it's called the NAEP score. It began when a president in the 80s was in office, and national, I don't know if I can say it, E is for education and P is for progress test, but it tests 4th and 8th graders. You know, most recently our 4th graders were like one of the best in the world. And so I think sometimes we hear this stuff about our current test that measures standards. That's not an achievement test like what you and I had in the old days in school. A standards test is like a high jump bar. You're only going to have about 60% proficient and advanced. You're never going to have 90%. It's not an achievement. So as our kids do better, as they clear 6 foot on that achievement test, the bar goes to 6.2. Then it goes to 6.4, because you're always going to keep about 60%. That's the thing, and we've had politicians use that, or legislators use that, and say, oh, we got 1/3 of our kids are not proficient in 3rd grade reading. When's the last time you've been to a 3rd grade class in Wyoming? The kids are all reading. Even the kids with IEPs are reading. Go visit a 3rd grade class in your town. And so, but you're always going to have this about 60. We've got this school district up in the top part of the state named after a general. They're like leading the state, and they continue to, but these are all really close, and they're all, so it's a standards-based test. It's not an achievement test like the ACT or any of those. So don't, learn more about that before you go in there. But our kids are doing really well. And we'll continue to do that. We made an incredible investment since statehood in our children, and we'll keep doing that. So let's let this charter bus, see if it's going to take off. And let's see about the wait lists, and let's see how it all works for 4 or 5 years before we start pumping a bunch of public money into this. So thank you, and appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Thayer.
Thank you, Chairman. I just, again, want to talk about something in the fiscal note. It states in here about adding additional funding to the Wyoming Department of Education, or the appropriation. And it says, for an incalculable but potentially significant expenditure increase to school district foundation program. We have said all day about being transparent, being fiduciarily responsible. And I'm just, how can we as a body vote for something when we have no idea what the funding will be? Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none?
Question.
Did you have one? Question. Are you sure? Okay. So the question, so all those in favor of Chairman Andrews' motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that House Bill 94 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no? No. Yeah, we get to stand up and stretch. So all those in favor, please stand. Please be seated. All those opposed, please stand. Okay, have a seat. Less than 43. So this House Bill 94 has passed the Committee of the Whole. And I am going to, with tremendous gratitude, hand this off to somebody. Please. Please.
Absolutely.
Okay. Can I hand it off to you?
Yes, certainly.
Yay, I'm going to hand it off to our
You're going to be right down
our
there.
speaker. I'm going to go right down. I will get all this stuff in a minute then, yeah?
Okay. Okay, let's see. Committee. Okay. Fails. The chief clerk. Where is the? There you go. Where's the chief clerk? Where's the parliament in here on this? No, we finished. Oh no, you're good. It should be called. Where's the closeout for this? Right there it is. It's on the back side. Okay. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I move that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The motion carries. Chairman, you want to write down there. Okay, the reading clerk will read the Committee of the Whole report.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole, having had under consideration bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. House Bill 51 failed to pass Committee of the Whole and was indefinitely postponed. House Bill 121 do pass. House Bill 96 do pass amended. House Bill 94 do pass. Representative Campbell, Chairman.
Representative Campbell.
I move the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Congratulations, Representative Campbell. Thank you, Representative Campbell. Oh, yes. Representative Larson, privilege of the floor.
Stay. Mr. Speaker, privilege of the floor. This is the most exciting news for you. And once you receive it, you won't sleep a wink tonight, because tomorrow, yes, folks, tomorrow is the energy lunch. Sponsored by the Energy Authority. Come prepared, and do not forget the energy lunch down in 54 and 55 tomorrow afternoon at lunch.
Thank you,
The question,
Representative.
Mr. Chairman, the question come back, what are they having? Energy food.
Serving energy bars dipped in chocolate, I would hope. Thank you, Representative Larson. Okay, messages from the Senate.
Message 117. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading in an amended form by the vote indicated. Senate File 33, non-citizen driver's license and ID card revisions. Ayes 27, noes 3, excused 1. Message 118. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. Senate File 38, Performance Compensation Investment Performance Amendment. Ayes 30, excused 1. Message 119. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading in an amended form by the vote indicated. Senate File 53, Trademarks and Trade Names Administrative Cancellation. Ayes 16, noes 14, excused 1. Message 120. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. Senate File 72, Summer Vacation Preservation Act. Ayes 17, noes 13, excused 1. Message 121. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading in an amended form by the vote indicated. Senate File 7, Protection Order Amendments. Ayes 30, excused 1. Message 122. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading in an amended form by the vote indicated. Senate File 44, Fairness in Sports Intercollegiate Athletics. Ayes 27, noes 3, excused 1. Message 123. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. Senate File 70, Investment Modernization, State Non-Permanent Funds. Ayes 23, noes 7, excused 1. Sincerely, Ellen Thompson, Senate Chief Clerk.
Thank you. Reader, reports from standing committees.
Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 2 appropriations will be meeting in 8 minutes.
Representative Bear, these will not be committee announcements. These will be reports from standing committees. I'm sorry. We'll be calling on you shortly.
House Joint Resolution 3, sponsored by Representative Sherwood, support for rural schools. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 4 Education, to whom is referred House Joint 3, support for rural schools. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Andrew, Bratton, Erickson, Gugamas, Kelly, Lawley, Singh, Strzok, Williams. Representative Andrew, Chairman. House Bill 10, sponsored by Minerals, Limited Mining Operations Amendments. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business and Economic Development, to whom is referred House Bill 10, Limited Mining Operations Amendments. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Campbell, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Riggins, Schmid, Tarver, Weber. Noes, Representative Lawley. Representative Heiner, Chairman. House Bill 43, sponsored by Representative Lawley. Age verification for websites with harmful material. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1 Judiciary, to whom is referred House Bill 43, age verification for websites with harmful material. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brady, Bratton, Chestick, Filer, Kelly, Lean, Singh, Washit, Webb. Representative Washit, Chairman. House Bill 64, sponsored by Representative Nyman. Chemical abortions, ultrasound requirement. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred House Bill 135. Stand by. Fix that one. I didn't know that. 135. Corporations 135. Find the right one for that one. the bill in the standing committee. House Bill 131, sponsored by Representative Knapp. Ballot drop boxes prohibition. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom is referred House Bill 131, ballot drop boxes prohibition, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Brown, Heft, Johnson, Knapp, Locke, Lucas, Webb, Weber. Noes, Representative Yin. Representative Locke, Vice Chairman. It's right here. Exchange it with this one. House Bill 199, sponsored by Representative Andrew, Wyoming Freedom Scholarship Act. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 4, Education, to whom is referred House Bill 199, Freedom Scholarship Act, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Andrew, Bratton, Erickson, Gugamas, Kelly, Lawley, Singh, Strzok, Williams. Representative Andrew, Chairman. House Bill 235, sponsored by Representative Andrew, Career Technical Education Equipment Supplies. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 4, Education, to whom is referred House Bill 235, Career Technical Education Equipment and Supplies, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Andrew, Bratton, Erickson, Gugamas, Kelly, Lawley, Strzok, Williams. No, Representative Singh. Representative Andrew, Chairman. Which one's fixed? It was 64. We didn't both die. We used both of them. House Bill 64, sponsored by Representative Nyman. Chemical abortions ultrasound requirement. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred House Bill 64, Chemical abortions ultrasound requirement, respectfully report same back to the House with a recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Klauston, Gugamas, Heft, McCann, Ottman, Rodriguez-Williams, Wasserberger. Noes, Representative Yin. Excused, Representative Stivar. Representative Rodriguez-Williams, Chairman. House Bill 135, sponsored by Representative Gugamas. Autologous or direct blood donations. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred House Bill 135, autologous or direct blood donations, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Gugamas, Heft, McCann, Ottman, Rodriguez-Williams, Wasserberger. Noes, Representatives Klauston, Yin. Excused, Representative Stivar. Representative Rodriguez-Williams, Chairman. Did I get this one? Yes, I did.
Thank you. We have some re-referrals. Representative Andrew, Chairman, Committee number 4.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that House Bill 199 and House Bill 235 be re-referred to Committee number 2, Appropriations.
Thank you, Representative. Committee announcements. Representative Bear.
I apologize for my exuberance earlier to get to our 3rd meeting of the day, but your committee number 2 is meeting in 5 minutes upstairs to go over state-funded capital construction, House Bill 258, and supplemental K-12 school facilities appropriations, House Bill 259, and re-referrals as assigned. We will be meeting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. as a joint appropriations to continue our work on the supplemental budget. We do anticipate finishing, and the second half, 9 a.m., we may be able to go into House appropriations meeting to continue school-funded CapCon as well as state CapCon, and then we will continue that debate if necessary at noon tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Chairman Bear. Chairman Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your House Committee 3, Revenue, will meet tomorrow morning at 7:30 in Capitol Extension Room E5. And we will see three bills. We'll be going over three bills. House Joint Resolution 4, Constitutional Amendment, Veterans Property Tax Exemption. House Bill 214, Local Government Payments, Electronic Payments. And House Bill 126, Sales Tax on Services Repeal.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Tarver. Committee Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow, upon noon recess, your committee number 8 will be taking up or finishing up House Bill 24, taking on House Bill 23, House Bill 27, if time permits, House Bill 86.
Thank you, Vice Chair Tarver. Any other committee announcements? Seeing none, Representative Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess this privilege of the floor.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Your courtesy committee will rendezvous at the front of this room immediately as we gavel out. Thank you.
Hope you all understood what that was about, but got something going on. Okay. Oh, Representative Oppmann, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The State House Republican Caucus will meet in the committee room number 5 right now in like 5 minutes. We're going to have a short meeting because I know it's getting late, but we have a few things to cover, so it would be great, and we'll have a little bit of cake. So if you see you down there, Belle Fourche room number 5 in 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Oppmann. Seeing no other business properly conducted, the Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House adjourn until tomorrow, January 23rd at 10 a.m.
You have heard the motion of the Majority Floor Leader. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. We shall stand adjourned until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. That will be the 8th day of session, 2025. Thank you, everyone. Do you know what?